Britain's charity shops are refusing donations. I know this for a fact, as I've been trying to donate my excess antiques and vintage stock for a couple of weeks now. And none of them are accepting donations because apparently they're full. Let that sink in. At a time when people can barely make ends meet, when headlines scream of austerity and inflation, the very institutions built on generosity are bursting at the seams and can't accept donations. This can't just be a story about clutter. It has to be a story about a nation under strain. When charity shops say no more, it tells us something uncomfortable. Overflowing supply, stagnant demand. The public is discarding more than these shops can absorb, and the buyers out there cannot keep up with the supply. Is this the mirror of our 21st century economic reality? Charity shops once stood as community cornerstones. They thrived on modest donations, steady footfall, the quiet satisfaction you get for donating an unwanted jumper, child's toy, or a book. But today, charity shop storerooms look more like warehouses after a clearance sale. Why? Well, in my opinion, because the cost of living crisis has created a paradox. You've only got to attend a car boot sale or flea market to see what I mean. People are offloading possessions at unprecedented levels. Downsizing, decluttering, liquidating, generating space, and sometimes to simply generate cash to pay the bills. But at the same time, the demographic of demand appears to have shifted. In my experience, selling at car boots and flea markets, stock I'm literally giving away for £1 or £2 is getting offers of 50p or less. Something's not right at the most fundamental level. With charity shops raising their prices on a regular basis, are buyers no longer flooding through their doors? Because in the context of stagnating wages, the cost of living crisis and unemployment, even second-hand now feels expensive. Is this why charity shops are overflowing with stock they can't shift quickly enough? And as an aside, if charity shops are overflowing, what does that say about the rest of the retail landscape? Look closer and you see three forces converging. First up, excess supply. The global lockdown taught households how to clear out. Platforms like Vinted and eBay, there are other online platforms, normalised selling everything. I'll hold my hand up and admit that in 2020 through to 2022, I'd never sold so much stock online. It was an incredible time for sales. I knew it was unsustainable, and so luckily for me, I put away most of the excess profit I earned to sustain my business in the leaner years. Probably the best business decision I've ever made. But that's getting away from the point of this video. So let's get back to the subject matter in hand. What I'm saying is that thanks to 2020, 21 and 2022 and the rise of alternative reselling platforms, what used to end up in charity shops now competes with online resellers, while the excess that can't even be sold at car boots or online still pile into the charity shops. So is the problem that they are just getting the rubbish we can't sell at the car boots or online, and they simply can't handle the volume of rubbish being donated? In my specific case, the stock I'm trying to donate is far from rubbish. The only reason I'm donating it is because it doesn't meet my price criteria for the antiquecentral.co.uk website, so I thought I'd generate some karma by donating it. Little did I know how difficult it would turn out to be. In fact, nigh on impossible. Second on our list is shifting demand. Charity shops once served a specific local community service and sustained low-income families seeking bargains, or what they could afford. But when heating bills consume entire pay packets, even £3 for a second-hand shirt feels unaffordable. So, charity shops pricing stock at online platform rates isn't going to meet the needs of their core customers, those families and individuals in genuine need. So, is this now being reflected in excess stock piling up in charity shops? Quite possibly. Third on our list is retail saturation. Every town now seems to have multiple charity shops: Oxfam, British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research, and a multitude of local hospice stores and animal charities. Their success depends on sales volume, but does too much volume choke the system? Before we address that question, let's not ignore one uncomfortable possibility. Are charity shops listing their best stock online and filling their stores with the less desirable leftovers? Is that why their stock sits in their stores for so long, choking the pipeline and making it difficult for them to accept ongoing donations? The reality. In my opinion, charity shops are not rejecting generosity. Or, what I mean by that is generous offers. They are overwhelmed by the symptoms of a world in economic distress, plus the rise of alternative purchasing platforms where costs are low, and some say that the pricing race to the bottom is alive and well. In that respect alone, in the face of this competition, how can charity shops with high street overheads compete? So let's not mistake full storerooms for success. Charity shops, like any retailer, measure success in terms of turnover. In other words, what leaves the shelf, not what fills the back room. Overflow to any retailer is failure, charity shops included. For whatever reasons you come up with, it means circulation has stalled and they're receiving more donations than they're selling. It means competition is biting deeper, and this can be seen in the popularity of car boots and the growing number of online platforms. When charity shops can't sell what they already have, every extra bag of donations is a burden. It's another problem for them to deal with when they have limited space and staff. And yes, there is another factor. There's always another factor. Many donations are simply not saleable. Fast fashion, for example, has flooded the market with low quality clothing. Flat pack furniture crumbles under use. Cheap, disposable plastic toys often arrive broken or missing parts. In this respect, charity shops become unofficial recycling centres for rubbish, initially absorbing the costs of disposal from local councils and government. And have you ever asked yourself this question? What happens to the stock the charity shops can't sell? Where does it go? Does it ultimately end up in the landfill? If you know the answer to that question, let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested to learn more. So we should ask ourselves, when charity shops become the landfills of first resort, what does that say about our consumption patterns and the throwaway society we live in? There is a brutal irony here. And you know I like my brutal ironies. In theory, this should be the golden age of second-hand retail. And why, I hear you ask? Well, sustainability is fashionable. Recycling is a moral imperative. Trendy activists preach reduce, reuse, recycle. Yet in practice, charity shops are drowning in excess. The mismatch between rhetoric and reality is stark and reflects a wider truth. The world's economy is hollowed out. Those of us who can afford to buy imported cheap goods, discard them quickly, and to keep our overconsumption consciences clear, rely on charity shops to mop up the aftermath. And in my experience, the shops just can't cope. And the irony is, their very refusal of donations is an indictment of how disposable our culture has become. We truly are living in a throwaway culture. It just depends on how we throw it away. So if the cheapest, greenest, most community-driven retail model cannot survive under current conditions, what does that reveal about the system as a whole? Well, I suggest the implications are far-reaching for the following reasons. Number one, charities will lose revenue. Fewer items sold means less money for hospices, cancer research, international aid, etc. Number 2, communities who don't have access to the internet lose access to readily available second-hand goods. For some, charity shops are the last affordable clothing outlet. Empty tills today mean closed doors tomorrow. And how many closed charity shops do you see on the high street nowadays? Well, loads. Number 3, dealers and traders lose a source of supply. In addition to those low-income families who rely on charity shops, antique dealers, second-hand sellers, in fact everyone who relies on charity shops as part of their retail ecosystem, find themselves watching the source of supply disappearing in front of their very eyes. This is not just a local inconvenience, it's a global indicator. To put it dramatically, the economy is speaking to us through the silence of those locked donation bins and stacked shelves. So charity shops turning away donations is not a side effect. It's the retail embodiment of the canary in the coal mine, always waiting to take its last gasp of air. And we should be concerned about this. So next time you hear, "Sorry, we're not accepting donations right now," don't just shrug. Recognise it as a signal that the world's cost of living crisis is reshaping the very institutions built on thrift and generosity. A signal that supply and demand are no longer in balance. A signal that the eternal battle between poverty versus excessive consumption is not just tightening its grip, it's transforming the face of our communities and widening the ever-increasing gap between the haves and the have-nots. Charity shops are full, and I've explained why I think it's happening, but the nation is running empty. So the question is not, where will my excess stock go? The question you should be asking yourself is, what does this overflow of unwanted stock tell us about the state of the Western world itself? My name's Mark. Thanks for watching this episode of Antiques Central.